it's that time of year, everyone, and it's that time of day. I'm Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi. Welcome back to another episode of the I Can Do This All Day podcast.
Hello there. On such a wonderful week when we will gorge on food and gorge on deals, we thought what better way to celebrate the season of thanks and fellowship and turkey murder than to dig into everybody's favorite post-turkey activity, that is Black Friday shopping and the movie.
Black Friday. So this has an IMDb rating of 4.7. Staggering IMDb rating.
I'm surprised it's so high.
And Rotten Tomatoes, 65% and 57% of Google users like this movie. Tell the audience why we're watching this and reviewing this for today's episode.
We are watching this movie for two reasons. One, because we needed a Thanksgiving episode, and neither one of us thought about the movie Dutch, which is going to be next year's Halloween episode, because it's got an amazing cast. We didn't think about it. We forgot about it. And we did Trains, Planes, and Automobiles last year. So we were like, man, we need a Thanksgiving thing to see. And we were Googling on the Google machine, and we asked ChatGPT, and this came up, and I was like, wait, a movie with Bruce Campbell? And Dan, of course, was like, And then I was like, wait, it's got Michael Jai White. And Dan was like, he kicks things. I like him. And then we realized it was a movie about working in retail on Black Friday. We were both like, oh, I'm sure we've got some good stories and just trauma from that shit. So let's do that. That'll be a fun episode. And in case you guys were wondering, Dan and Mark, this movie Black Friday, where is it? Where is it from? How have we not heard about it? It was released in 2021. I don't even know if it was released in theaters, but to middling acclaim. And you haven't heard about it because, according to IMDb, it grossed $1,581.
Shit, my paycheck grossed more than that. Holy shit.
Same.
That's crazy.
Same.
Seriously, so 1,570.
This says the gross box office worldwide is, which means it played in like 2 theaters. I would guess that this almost immediately went to streaming, where it has found a home where 57% of Google users liked it.
Funny story about this movie. When you were talking about the cast list and the fact that it revolved around retail Black Friday, I was like, yep, sold. Let's do it. And I was telling my wife, like, hey, do you want to watch this for family movie night? It's supposed to be pretty good. And she's like, oh, yeah, we'll watch that. I put it on, and I'm telling my boys, and my youngest is like, but we already watched this. I was like, no, we haven't. We haven't seen this. He's like, but yeah, it is. This is the part where blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, really? We watched this? So apparently we did watch this movie when it first came out, and it was definitely on streaming. I want to say it was on, like, I don't know, maybe Peacock, maybe.
Tubi?
But I don't even know if it was on that, because I don't think we would have watched anything on Tubi. That was still prime COVID. So we were watching everything Netflix, everything streaming service. So that's where that came up. I knew that I was in for a tough challenge, because if I didn't remember anything from the movie and we watched it and my kids remember it, I must have been totally spaced out and not interested. But either way, so far at the beginning, not a good sign that I didn't remember anything. But did you have any expectations going into this movie, knowing what the cast list was like? I didn't read any reviews, but did you do any of that?
I had the expectation that this was going to be not very good and wonderful fodder for a Thanksgiving binge of epic proportions of terribleness. We watched the trailer together, and then I showed my wife the trailer, and she was like, I mean, I guess I could watch it. Shout out to Devon Sawa being the only reason my wife was interested in this movie as her teenage movie interest back in the day. But yeah, this movie has a final destination with me that we'll talk about later.
So I thought that Devon Sawa had died years ago.
I don't know
But
why that's so funny.
I mean, yeah, apparently it is. But yeah, I thought he died years ago, but it turns out I got him confused with Brad Renfro, who died in 2008.
Oh,
So I'm just thinking to myself, like, did I just Mandela affect myself? Like, I'm pretty sure he died. I've seen headlines that Devon Sawa died, but nope, still alive, at least as of today. And yes, R.I.P. Brad Renfro, who was also one, probably, if you ask your wife, she probably had a crush on him too, because I know a lot of girls in my grade were also very smitten with Brad Renfro.
I mean, Brad Renfro was not Casper. I mean, let's be honest.
He was in plenty of movies, The Client, Apt Pupil, Bully, Sleepers, and then Tom and Huck with Jonathan
Yeah,
Taylor
yeah, but
Thomas. Who could forget that banger?
he wasn't Junior in Little Giants. Devon Sawa back in the day, rocking it. SLC Punk Slackers, like
But I guess we should probably talk about the Black Friday movie.
I
Uh,
guess. I mean, we could talk about other movies if we really wanted to.
so Black
Go ahead.
Friday. So before we get into the movie itself, let's just stay on the topic of Black Friday. So for those of you who do not know us in real life or who have not listened to some of the previous episodes, Mark and I grew up in the retail field. And Mark, any personal stories or anecdotes from Black Fridays?
Oh, I have done Black Friday at the worst Black Friday things or places that have ever been. I think I've done two at Best Buy
Ooh,
at some point, and I mean that
that's got to be
is
rough.
not a good scene. But yeah, no, years of Black Fridays, and I I had this habit for the longest time. Like there's a bunch of stories of people like not getting breaks or not getting to eat lunch and people just being absolute psychos as customers. But after I exited the retail arena, I used to go to Black Friday stuff. My mom is a little crazy about Black Friday because saving $10 is the difference between a good Christmas and a bad Christmas.
Well, that's just common sense, right?
Yeah, obviously. So she would drag us out for the midnight openings and stuff like that. So I made it a point to go Black Friday shopping after I was out of the retail arena just to appreciate the fact that I didn't have to work on Black Friday anymore and to make me work harder through the holidays at my real people job so I never had to go back to Black Friday work. What about you? I know that you worked at a very, it just seems like such a Black Friday destination.
Yeah, unfortunately. So there was a good chunk of my retail career being on the sales floor and in management was at a place that just it seemed like it was just a bargain, just a patriotic bargain, if you will. And if any of my former coworkers are listening, you guys know exactly what the hell I'm
Oh,
talking
Lee
about. But it
Greenwood
was
shop there.
it was not a fun time. When we were working on those Black Fridays, like this is peak Christmas. You're buying your stuff to decorate your trees, your houses, and it's just the worst. I mean, the people really were the worst on that
Can
day.
you can you talk to me about the smell of Christmassy scents and chlorine water mixing? How did that happen? How'd that work for you?
Oh, well, it blew up one of our floors one time just because the
Wait,
chemicals aren't
what?
supposed to mix. No, I'm just
What?
kidding. Totally,
Oh,
totally
I was
kidding.
like, ah, yes, fire, fire.
It does not do well because I don't like the smell of really strong those cinnamon pine cones that places
Cinnamon,
sell. Uh,
cinnamon.
we sell that, or well, the company I used to work for probably still sells that. And I just have a lot of PTSD from the nonstop, incessant holiday music that started November 1st, if not October 31st at like 9 p.m. because the store was closed for Halloween and then it just instantly transformed into Christmas. But the overall just annoyance and when you factor in the people on top of smelling like chlorine or smelling like those Christmassy cinnamon pine cones, like you just want to get the hell out of there and you want to take off your clothes and burn them. Like you just feel dirty after a day and you're exhausted both mentally and physically. The only time that I could say that I had a memorable Black Friday story is one time someone took a shit in one of the aisles. And here's the thing,
Oh, did you throw a cinnamon
multiple
pine cone on it? A cinnamon pine
multiple
cone.
employees, multiple employees saw the pile of shit and we just turned around and walked away.
Nope.
Uh,
Nope.
Me being in management also turned around and walked away. So it was yeah, not the best management spot there, but we eventually did get, unfortunately, someone who was working for minimum wage to clean it up. But
That'd have
he was a
been
good kid.
that'd have been a what you can do, fire me for not cleaning up shit. I'll buy. See ya.
Yeah. I did
675
have
ain't worth it, baby.
I did have someone quit one time because we were trying to clean up puke or something, and she was like, "I'm done," and she walked. It's a
Not.
super good employee
Yeah.
until that was like the breaking point, though. So she obviously had like a bunch of personal stuff going on, and she wasn't happy with the job. But at the same time, she's like, "I'm not cleaning up puke. Fuck this. I'm out of here."
Oh
And I was
man,
like,
I
I totally understand you, but
dude, I'm so jealous of her perspective. I'm not gonna lie. I remember having those minimum wage or really, shit paying jobs, and for some reason feeling this like sense of urgency to hold on to it and like I got to do whatever they tell me to because they're going to fire me and it's going to be so hard to find a job. There are many situations that I would, looking back, should have been like, no, or I'll quit. Like you either do it or I'll quit. I'm not doing that. And I hope to pass that perspective on to my son at some point in life, right? Because if you're working for minimum wage, it's not hard to find a gig.
do you have any memorable stories about you being a shopper for Black Friday?
Oh, I've got a great. You know what? I do have an excellent Black Friday story now that it's matriculating through my head, and my wife will be really glad that I'm immortalizing this story. So, Black Friday is obviously the day after Thanksgiving, and on Thanksgiving, sometimes if you're gonna wait it out and go shopping, you have a few drinky poos. Right? You have a little tip back a few cups, have a little bit of a celebration before exiting the place and going to the thing. So my wife imbibed and was having a good time at a family gathering, and then we were gonna go hit up a few shopping locations on the way back. We're gonna meet up with her parents, her mom and her sister that were out. My mom was gonna be out shopping too, so I'm sure we're like, oh, we'll run into her too. So we left and drove a bit. I drove because she was in no condition to. And it was one of those like the stores open at midnight or whatever. We ended up, I remember, at a Target, and they didn't have the full cafe open, but they had like popcorn for people. They're really excited about it. And my wife, I've never seen my wife excited to get popcorn more. And she was like, half of it was in her mouth, half of it was on the floor as we're walking through this place. And I didn't notice it. She was walking like slower behind me and stuff. And we end up running into her mom, and her mom was just like horrified. It was hilarious. She like yelled at her. It was awesome. And so we did that. Ran into my sister there too, which was awesome. And my wife's still feeling great. So we go somewhere else and hit a couple other stores. Her sister comes with us. And we're bouncing a few places. We run into my mom at a place, and this was almost when the sun was coming up. We did like the all-nighter Black Friday thing, right? Because that used to be fun. And again, it was fun because you could see the ridiculousness. And through me, I was just like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do this anymore. Like, that feeling, just happiness that this is not a thing in your life. And my mom looked at her and she's like, she doesn't look real good. You should probably take her home because she was coming down off of it. And the only time I've ever seen my wife throw up, we had to pull over on the way home, and she called the dinosaurs in some random parking lot. And all I could think of as we're driving home is, man, somebody's gonna get to work at that Jiffy Lube and be like, what the hell happened here in our parking lot? Um, but yeah, no, drinking for Black Friday as you went shopping also was a fun thing. Like going doing that sober is not a good deal.
I remember there was a time that the mall that I was working at had extended hours for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. And so I actually had to go to the store at like midnight or something to that effect. And because my store had little coverage, I basically worked from like 9 p.m. to I think it was like 4 a.m. Drove home for maybe a 3 hour nap and then went back to work to finish out the day to close out on Black Friday. It was the most
Illegal?
miserable Black Friday I ever had. It was so awful. I was so tired. I was craving that sleep. I slept every bit of those, 2 or 3 hours or whatever it was. And I don't even think I took my clothes off. I didn't even shower. I just went right back to work after I woke up. Good God. I did not smell good that day, and the work effort was at a bare minimum. So, yeah.
That's where you grab a couple extra cinnamon pine cones and you're all good.
Ugh. 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 Oh well. Hey, so let's we've talked about Black Friday, right? So let's actually talk about the movie itself. Why don't you give us your version of the plot?
Oh, this is great. Unhappy employees show up to job that they hate, wishing that they were dead, and turns out there was something trying to kill them.
That's about as simple as it can get, and it's 100% accurate. This movie does not have a very intricate plot. I don't think we even get a an explanation as to what the monster slash alien is in this movie. Do
It
we?
was
Like
the
this is
thing. It was basically the thing. It was the thing
sort
on
of.
somehow of a lower budget. Like
It was
somehow.
like the Blob and the Thing and
Night of the Living
something
Dead.
else, but yeah,
Yeah,
all put
yeah,
together.
yeah, all
Uh,
together. But like all I saw in this movie was like, oh, it's a little glowing brain thing that shoots out at your face. That seems familiar, Kurt Russell.
but it would be probably at least beneficial to the plot to understand as to what caused it. So that there was no explanation whatsoever for this. And I
Hmm.
guess, you go back to some of the Romero movies and there's never really a good explanation as to what happens. It just kind of happens and there's zombies there. So that was kind of in the same vein of this movie, but since it was more for comedic purposes, I think that's okay to just kind of leave it alone. And even if they did come up with some type of good scientific reason as to why this being was there, it wouldn't be as satisfactory as just watching the ridiculousness. So,
I mean, I like Devon Sawa's explanation. It was some next level bath salt shit.
yeah, that was a good one. And I do remember when the whole bath salts thing
You're in Florida, you
was
should.
it was sweeping all the headlines across the nation. But did you know it wasn't even really bath salts that made the person go crazy?
No, because I didn't look into it.
It was just drugs. It was just drugs.
Just
They said
regular
it was like bath
drugs.
salts.
It's
Yeah,
not
they
bath
just
salts.
fucking tripped out. They tripped
Those
out over
those are
that.
stinky drugs, not warm smelling cinnamon
Uh,
Vicos.
oh man. So we're here for the fun. We're here for the laughs. So this cast for the retail store, and I think they shot it at an old Babies R Us. I think I really empathized with that coworker roster because I
Oh,
think every job
it was
has a
accurate.
roster very similar.
It was so accurate. First things first. Fuck Anita. Anita sucked. Anita was that just ass kisser. Every retail store manager is Bruce Campbell in this movie. Every GM of a terrible retail store is Bruce Campbell in this movie to a T. It was the most accurate retail movie since that Dane Cook movie with with Jessica Simpson.
Employee of the Month. Is that the one you're talking
Yes,
about?
is the
You
most,
really love you really love that movie. You've mentioned it like
dude.
at least five
It,
different
it
times on
just
other
reminded me
episodes.
so much of the real retail world. It's so realistic. I don't know if you just have people that come to mind when you think of the different characters in the film. Um,
People that come to mind, like whole organizations come to mind with the what are you talking about? It
oh
was
man,
super balls on accurate, and I was getting a
oh,
little bit of PTSD. It's like, oh, yep, that's so and so.
that happens.
Oh, I remember hiring that kid. He was exactly like him. Like, yeah, it was just a lot of a trip down memory lane, if you will.
But the
Some
one
of them
thing
good
about that,
memories.
the one thing about that is it gave you stakes into rooting for who you wanted to fucking die. Like,
Sure.
it's just like I cheered when Anita got fucking scorpioned.
I was hoping she was going to stay alive a little bit longer just because she's a good antagonizer and you like to hate her, so why not keep her around just a little bit more?
No Hawaiian shirt guy needed to fucking kill her. And it was great. Just
My
finish him
I
in the
did
neck.
have I was excited about seeing Michael Jai White in this cast, and here I was thinking like he is gonna fuck some alien monster zombie vampires up. Like that's what he's there for. And he just gets wiped out like I think he takes out maybe one or two and then he gets killed. It's like, oh, jeez.
A
But
huge waste.
I was surprised though because I thought maybe he was still alive. So you hear him scream, but you don't see him die. So I thought maybe like he screamed and then he cut open like the little zombie guts and then it just spilled out. So I was expecting him to come back the entire movie and it never happened. Did you think that of his death? Did you think his off-screen death was just like, "Oh, that's a ruse, a cunning attempt to trick me."
I feel like they only paid him for like 2 days. Like it was so disappointing because again, like what do you want to see Michael Jai White with in this movie? A sharp-edged weapon doing some fucking ninja shit, right? Like that's what you want here, and you didn't get it. He had a nail
Not
gun.
at all.
He had a
Yeah.
nail gun that nail gun doesn't work like that. Like that's not how nail guns work. Happy Gilmore.
It would be cool if it did though, right?
It would be cool, but it's not. It is not the way that happens. And yeah, you just wanted him to fucking like break off a mop and fucking just twirl that bitch around his head and just be knocking dude, like somebody that has that much ability or skill from a stunt perspective to not do a stunt is
Yeah.
is just like why? Why would you do that? Like I don't under it's the same thing with Devon Sawa. It's like for somebody who um cheats death in many movies, he didn't really like cheat much death there. There wasn't a lot going on for him in dying. Like he was a little too clean at the end of it. At least for me. I know he got bit by the other employee, which was fucking great. Um, and also Bruce Campbell not getting brutalized in this film, solely because Sam Raimi wasn't the director, disappointed me. Because watching Bruce Campbell suffer is just a fun thing to do.
I thought he was gonna go out like with a blaze of glory, like we would have actually seen him doing something.
He needed
Like,
a boomstick or a chainsaw.
yeah,
And,
I
and
mean,
not
like,
integrating S-Mart into this is a huge miss.
not once did he say something like super cheesy and campy, like clean up on aisle five and like taking out like a bunch of them. Like, there should have been something like that, especially from Bruce Campbell. And you're expecting some of those cheesy lines coming from him, but like with his suave, basically just delivery of the line, you would think like, oh yeah, that's what I came here for, is because Bruce Campbell is going to say something just really cool. But no, nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. You don't see him
No.
kick any ass. You just see him be a retail manager, which that's all good and dandy, but at the same time, I like my Bruce Campbell kicking just at least a little bit of ass.
Agreed.
But what about some of the other characters in this? Did you like them? Did you see any relationship or correlation to some of your previous coworkers in the past?
The tropes were very, they're there, right? The girl that everybody hits on, the dude that is not going anywhere in life and just kind of hanging out, like has no aspirations, the person who thinks they're too good for the job, the new guy that's optimistic about working there for the first 5 minutes before he gets killed by a fucking zombie. Um, the huge kiss ass. It's just all there, but it was, it's very like, yes. I was just like, oh,
So the character that everyone thinks is gorgeous and hits on, it just reminds me of a story back when I used to do the hiring at one of my jobs and I would do all the interviews. And it was just such an unprofessional atmosphere. Like stock eyes would run up behind the candidate that I was interviewing and they would like take a peek and if she was good looking, they're like, hire her, come on. And like they weren't even being slick about it. Like there's a couple times that some of the candidates would like turn around and look because they're laughing or giggling in the background. I'm just like, Jesus, guys, have a little bit of tact. But it was totally out of like a type of raunchy movie or raunchy type of TV show that just objectifies women, and that's what I was working with. These animals for stock guys that are just like you let them out on the floor for a few minutes, and they're just scoping out all the hot moms and the hot cashiers and stuff. It was just it was a challenge to work there, to say the least.
I think it's really funny, and I agree. I remember all these chauvinistic people, and
Savages,
just savages.
unacceptable,
Yeah,
unacceptable.
yeah, no,
Not
it's
us.
not us, never us. I don't know what you're talking about. We're high class corporate liaisons and good corporate citizens, but I do think it's really funny to me. Um, just the somehow relatability of this. So I feel like the writer and director worked retail and did, but they didn't watch movies at all. Like they didn't know who Michael Jai White was. They didn't know who Bruce Campbell was. And Devon Sawa, they were like, "You're a good actor, right?" Yeah,
I
sure.
feel like yeah,
Okay.
they just went to like a casting director like, "Hey, I don't know, just find some people for me." And it's
Yeah.
like, "Well, okay, there we go."
Yeah. And they got money from like people with nostalgic love for things, right? Like, oh, Bruce Campbell signed on for a movie about zombies. Yes.
It was
Michael Jai White's gonna fight these zombies too. Like names and like a short synopsis with no character descriptions went out in the funding round, and they got just enough money to make it.
I feel like Babies R Us was like on the verge of going bankrupt at that point, or maybe it
Oh, it was
was
already
completely
done. It
bank.
was already
Was
gone.
it?
It was well
Oh
gone.
man. I was thinking like Babies R Us was like holding on for like that last glimmer of hope. Like, hey, if we let this Hollywood studio shoot this movie here, maybe we'll get enough income and it'll kind of generate some buzz around the store. We'll just be like a tourist destination. It's like that's their last glimmer of hope is Black Friday the movie, and the nope didn't happen.
Oh, yeah, no, no.
What about the humor in this? Are you digging the jokes and the banter back and forth amongst the employees?
It was definitely funny. It was definitely funny. I think that the banter is not at like a waiting or an employee of the month level. I think that they needed
Gotta
somebody that
wait,
wrote
wait, hold
dialogue
on.
to scrub this.
Shoehorn in. Yeah, there we go. Employee of the month. All right, cool. We're good. We got at least three more times we can do this on the
It's the
podcast.
81 Honda. How dare you?
Oh man.
Like,
Um,
and it's nowhere near like Clerks, right? But
sure.
like those two movies to me are like middling there, like getting close, you know, but not Clerks. Clerks again. Like if you let Kevin scrub this script and direct it, oh my God, it would have been fucking great.
Probably. Like I
If you
think
let
that
the
there's
director of Tusk direct this movie, holy shit.
well, you just ruined your credibility on that one right there. But
I didn't say
yeah,
Jersey Girl. I said Tusk.
I do agree with you. I think, Kevin Smith's movies add something that is just really, really intelligent with the
Dialogue.
dialogue and entertaining. Like I actually just rewatched Red State. I remember watching that movie before and I was like, kind of disappointed. Not what I was thinking even for a Kevin Smith horror film. Not what I expected. But watched it again, I was like, yeah, this is pretty solid. And a lot of it is just because of the dialogue back and forth. It's a different type of dialogue. They're not bullshitting about Star Wars and everything, but they're talking about something else that brings some type of emotion and anger and bewilderment and curiosity that I was like, okay, cool. I can get down on Red State. I change my opinion on it. But this movie, after not remembering what it was the first time and then watching it again and really not remembering a whole lot about it because there was nothing that stuck out to me, was was a disappointing movie watching experience. But I wanted to like it because I was in my mind I had already thought that like, oh, this movie's gonna be badass. I guess I got to stop doing that because that's at least 3 or 4 times now that we've done a review on something that I was like, oh, this is gonna be so good. And
Well,
yeah, not the case.
I think that we grew up or came of age, if you will, in an era of movies where even the B movies, and this was definitely a B, if not a C movie, were still pretty good. Like, a lot of the cult classics out there that are like famous didn't do well in the box office.
Sure.
They're still watchable, right? Have you ever seen My Blue Heaven?
Of course.
My Blue Heaven was a B movie. It did not have wide critical renown or release, but it's fucking great and quotable and hilarious. But they don't really you don't find a lot of those movies anymore. And we've talked about this where it's just like you either get the mainstream big name stuff with either heavy directors or heavy franchises, or you get not a lot of good. And
Yeah,
that's
I can
that's
agree
where
with
some of the
that.
frustration lies for me is I want this kind of like comedy horror thing. I love it. I'll take more of this, but not this one, not with this writer, not with this director.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
no, that's you didn't give Michael Jai White a sword. What the fuck is wrong with you people?
He got a
Or a
knife, to
bat?
be
Just
fair.
give him a couple bats, swinging wiffle ball bats and killing zombies. It could happen.
He did a little bit of badassery, but not enough. Not
He had a
enough to
box
warrant.
cutter.
Like, he had a
You're
knife.
saying is not enough to justify a Michael Jai White
Yeah,
action scene. As I was quoting Crocodile Dundee and making knife comments to completely throw you off. Um, that's how it felt when this director touched the movie. It was just like, what? But I didn't. That's what it felt like. At least for me. What about you?
as I was watching it, I was like, oh, I totally understand why I don't remember this movie. Because there's not a whole lot of stuff that's memorable. There's some funny things. I couldn't tell you what those funny things are at this moment. I did chuckle as I was watching it, but that's it. I don't remember shit about this movie.
No, the Grinch
And
fucking killed him, dude.
yeah, yeah.
Did you notice that the main queen, Karen Zombie, was basically like a yellow spray painted Grinch from the Jim Carrey movie? Was
No,
it just me?
no. I just thought they took the real life lady that they were basing it off of and just stuck her into a latex costume, and that was her. It was just so cheesy.
It's
Like
so
I did like the fact that they brought it back to the "See You Next Tuesday" that Devon Sawa runs into at the beginning of the movie. So I was like,
yeah.
oh, that's her. So that was cool. That was clever. That was funny. And I'm not mad at Devon Sawa's portrayal throughout this movie either, because there's a lot of funny stuff that happens. I can't do my job, or I can't have Thanksgiving with my family. I can't drink at work. This shit's just awful. Like it's silly stuff like that that makes me think like, oh yeah, there are some bright spots to this movie. And Devon Sawa was actually just fine. Not bad for a guy who I thought was dead for years. But
Speaking of dead for years, did you have a favorite death in this movie? Like, was there one that stuck out for you that made you either like laugh out loud or look away or anything. Was there anyone, that really was your favorite?
I don't know who it was, but there was a character that I thought like, oh my God, they're gonna take a last stand against the monster and aliens. It's like splat. Whoops. That all right, there you go. That was it. That person's done. Like there it was just so, anticlimactic. It just you think that it's almost like the Dak Relter Award was given for that person right there because like I'm gonna take them out and then boom, out of there.
Oh
Boom,
man.
super bitch. Like that's it's done.
Oh, as much as I loved Anita dying and we all were happy because that bitch deserved to die, when the old lady was like, look, the police are here, and then just
Yeah, yeah,
fucking
that's it. That's
smash.
what it was.
Oh,
That's
it's
what it
so good.
was. Yeah.
Look, the police are here. Did you notice that they mentioned that they were having the same problem at the Schaumburg store?
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah. Gotta love, even if it's not in Illinois, which I don't think it
No,
was. I don't think it was
no, because there was no
but
snow.
yeah, but it was cool for them to just anytime you hear a town that you're familiar with, you're always like, yeah, we've got one of those. That's cool.
What about the special effects for you? Well, how did you like the silly string tongue and the boils and all that?
That
Like,
was
was it?
that was cool. I was fine with that. There were like a few things like at the end when the monster becomes like super kaiju sized that
I
it
just
was just like,
Karen.
eh, yeah, I could see why that's kind of cheesy. And then there's like a few other things. For no reason, there was a CGI fire. But there was like a real fire elsewhere in the scene. So that to me was like kind of stupid. Like, why do you put a fake CGI fire there when there's another real fire in another part of the background? Like, it didn't make sense to me. Unless that fire was hiding someone's like, KFC dinner or something like
Yeah,
that. Like,
there's something.
who fucking forgot to take their dinner out of the
We'll just
scene,
make it
damn it.
fire.
Yeah.
I love it. I
But
love
that's
it.
it. That's
And,
And what
and,
about you? Anything for you that's kind of sticking out?
I just wanted to call out the forklift driver that deserved the extra hourly rate for being a forklift. Like they flung us a fucking forklift at that bitch, and I was like, oh, that'd be hilarious if that's how they killed her. But then they just dragged it on
Yeah.
for no reason,
Yeah.
like literally for no reason. And then they all get in the minivan, and there's just a bunch of them. Like, did you feel like this story was resolved, or do you feel like it's just like a meh,
I
everybody's gonna die eventually? Like, it seemed like at the end of this movie, they showed you an ending that they felt like they got to in a very good way that made some kind of statement when really it didn't at all. To me, like the struggle was for nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was for. It was for nothing. But it kind of ripped off the Cloverview paradox. I think that's what it was called. It was that movie that was like advertised on the Super Bowl, and then everyone just after the Super Bowl, everyone just watched it on Netflix, and it was basically just something that happens in space, and it's like a prequel to Cloverview, the movie. And so that's kind of
Cloverfield,
just what it was. Like, oh, was it
Clover,
Cloverfield?
Cloverfield.
Whatever, fuck it. Who cares? I mean, that's that's where
Normally,
I'm at on
no,
this Black
normally
Friday
that's my
episode.
move, but way to steal
Yeah,
my move. Way to steal my move.
Clover. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm not at the best. Not the best when it comes to those Clover. Wait, Cloverfield? That's what it is. Cloverfield.
Cloverfield,
Okay.
Cloverfield. You wearing a Celtics hat while messing up Cloverview and Cloverfield. The irony doesn't escape me as there's a clover on your head.
Shamrock, my friend. Shamrock. I don't know.
Oh, Shamrock's a
That's what I
clover,
would say.
baby.
Yeah, but I will say like this was I was fine with the ending. I think that was the only way to end this movie really is just like, oh, we're all fucked. Because you know what? When you work retail, there is no winner,
Nope,
only
nope.
losers.
And there's Karens everywhere, baby.
Yeah. But hey, we got a chance to talk about the movie. I got a question to ask you if you're up for it.
Oh, I think I can handle it.
When it comes to the movie Black Friday, Mark, can you do this all day?
I can do this never a fucking again. Oh man,
Bold statement. Bold statement. Let's
I
see if it plays off.
this is not. I don't. If you remember the Clerks animated movie or the animated TV series, I want my $8 back. Like, talk about an absolute like misuse of talent and lack of writing ability and direction. Um, this movie is an abomination of large Karen kaiju stature. But you never know. We sometimes have differing opinions on things like this. Sometimes there's stinkers that we really love, like Employee of the Month. So, Dan, I have to ask you same question when it comes to Black Friday, the Devon Sawa vehicle. Can you do this all day?
So it's not as bad as I make it sound it to be. All right. So that I just want to throw that disclaimer out right there. But it is a pretty firm no, I cannot do this all day because Michael Jai White completely disrespected in this movie. Let the guy cook. Let him cook. You know what I mean? Like let him do what he does best, which is kick ass multiple people at a time. And just like no, that doesn't happen. Devon Sawa, glad to see that you're alive. So that's kind of a nice positive. He started to look a little bit more like Tom Felton from Harry Potter
He's
fame.
just not aging well. He looks like he's done some child star shit over the years and it's worn
As
him out a little bit.
as they all show. I mean, he's a full-grown man. Like he's probably closing in on 50
He's
right about now.
Devon Sawa is as old as we are. I will say it was nice to see him throw some things, break out that little Giants winger there as he threw stuff at some bad peoples.
And Bruce Campbell, so I'm not a huge Bruce Campbell fan, but I respect him and I do enjoy when I see him pop up in movies. It was just, when I was going into this thinking like, hey, I like retail, or at least movies based off of retail because I can relate to them. Um, I'm not a huge Bruce Campbell fan, but I think he'll do a solid and probably be a good, strong character, which he was. But there's nothing memorable about this movie. The only thing that's really memorable about it is this podcast reviewing it. So we might be the only podcast that has ever reviewed this movie. If there is another one, they don't count anyways, so we're the best. But yeah, that's where I'm at. But that kind of wraps up another episode of the I Can Do This All Day podcast, Thanksgiving edition. I hope you all will enjoy some awful dry turkey. And for those that smoke it, it's still probably pretty dry. So I'm not even impressed by that either. Don't tell me that you smoked it on the pellet grill for 6 hours. I don't care. Kind of
After brining
sucks.
for 48, baby. After brining for 48.
I will say that I do respect someone who can smoke a turkey, but at the same time, just spatchcock it and cook it in half the amount of time, and maybe even just order out for the sides, unless there's a side that you make really well. But that wraps it up for this Thanksgiving episode of the I Can Do This All Day podcast. I am Dan, the Part-Time Avenger. That is Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us how great we are at reviewing movies that you should never watch.
Happy Turkey Day. We'll see you next time, everyone.